Maya Reyes stood in the pouring rain
Ashes
at
to
Greenwood
ashes.
Cemetery, 7 months pregnant,
Dust
her
to
black
dust.
dress clinging to her swollen belly like a second skin. She clutched a bouquet of white lilies so tightly that the stems bent in her grip. Around her, the handful of mourners had already dispersed, scurrying toward their cars with umbrellas overhead. But Maya couldn't move. She stared at the casket being lowered into the muddy earth, watching the only person who ever truly loved her disappear forever. 10 feet behind her, Daniel Reyes stood under a large black umbrella. Not once did he step forward to shelter his pregnant wife from the downpour. Not once did he reach for her hand. Instead, his eyes were fixed on his phone, his thumb scrolling through messages with the casual disinterest of someone checking sports scores. The priest's voice cut through the rain. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Daniel sighed, loudly, as if burying his father-in-law was an inconvenience he hadn't scheduled into his calendar. Maya's hands trembled as she tossed the lilies onto the casket. They landed in the mud with a soft splat, immediately soaked and ruined, just like everything else in her life. "Maya, let's go," Daniel called out, not moving from his dry spot. "I have a meeting at 3. She turned to look at him, rain streaming down her face like tears she was too numb to cry. This man she had given 7 years of her life to. This man whose shirts she ironed every morning, whose meals she cooked every night, whose dreams she had put before her own at every single turn. He couldn't even stand in the rain with her for 5 minutes while she buried her father? The drive back to her father's apartment was silent. Maya sat in the passenger seat, her wet dress leaving a dark stain on the leather. Daniel kept the heat off, even though she was shivering. He pulled into the parking lot of the small apartment complex where her father had lived for 30 years, the same cramped 2-bedroom unit where she had grown up, where she had learned to ride a bike in the hallway, where her father had taught her to play chess on rainy Sunday afternoons. "I need to go through his things," Maya said quietly. "Will you help me?" Daniel was already checking his phone again. "I can give you an hour." Inside the apartment, the smell of her father's aftershave still lingered in the air. His reading glasses sat on the kitchen table next to a half-finished crossword puzzle. His coffee mug was in the sink, unwashed, as if he might walk through the door at any moment, apologize for being late, and ask her how she was feeling. But he would never walk through that door again. Maya sank into the kitchen chair, her hand instinctively moving to her belly where her daughter kicked. "It's okay, little one. Grandpa's watching over us now." That's when Daniel dropped the manila envelope on the table. The sound made Maya jump. She looked up at her husband, confused. "What is this?" "It's over, Maya." His voice was flat, rehearsed. "I can't do this anymore. You're drowning, and I need to breathe." The words didn't register at first. Maya stared at the envelope, then at Daniel, then back at the envelope. "What are you talking about?" "I'm filing for divorce. The papers are all there. I need you to sign them." Maya felt the room tilt. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. "Daniel, I buried my father today." "I know." He adjusted his cufflinks, not meeting his eyes. "But I've been thinking about this for months, and Elena gets it. She's been there for me while you've been lost." Elena. The name hit Maya like a physical blow. Elena Torres, Daniel's executive assistant at Viridian Dynamics, the massive tech company where Daniel worked as a mid-level sales manager. Elena, with her perfect blonde highlights and her designer suits and her habit of touching Daniel's arm during conversations that lasted just a little too long. Elena, who had accidentally canceled Maya's prenatal appointments 3 times, always claiming calendar errors that somehow never got fixed. "You're leaving me for Elena? I'm 7 months pregnant with your child." Daniel finally looked at her, and there was nothing in his eyes. No guilt, no remorse, no love. Just the cold calculation of a man who had already moved on. "Elena and I have been together for over a year. She's everything you're not. Ambitious, driven, alive. You've become a ghost, Maya. All you do is take care of your dying father and complain about being tired." "My father had cancer," the words tore out of her throat. "I was his only family. I was taking care of him while you were sleeping with her."
Daniel didn't deny it. He picked up his keys from the counter and headed toward the door. "I'll send someone for my things. Sign the papers, Maya. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Daniel, please." She hated the pleading in her voice, but she couldn't stop it. "We can work through this, for the baby at least. Just give me time to—" "The baby will be fine with a single mother. Plenty of kids are." He opened the door, then paused. "Oh, and don't bother calling my office. Elena handles all my personal matters now." The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Maya sat frozen at the kitchen table, her hands on her belly, her mind refusing to process what had just happened. Her father was dead, her husband was gone, and she was 7 months pregnant with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. That's when she noticed Daniel's coat hanging on the back of the chair. He must have forgotten it in his hurry to leave. Mechanically, she reached for it, intending to throw it out the window or set it on fire or do something to release the scream building in her chest. A photograph fell out of the pocket. Maya picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a candid shot from what looked like a fancy party, men in tuxedos, women in elegant gowns, champagne flowing like water. In the center of the frame, Daniel and Elena stood with their arms around each other, laughing at some private joke. Elena wore a stunning red dress that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. Daniel looked at her like she was the center of his universe. Maya turned the photo over. On the back, someone had written a date. The date was 3 days ago, the night before her father died. While Maya had been sitting at her father's bedside, holding his hand as his breathing grew shallow, her husband had been at a charity gala with his mistress. While she had been listening to her father's last words, desperate to remember every syllable, Daniel had been toasting to his new life with champagne and laughter. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Maya almost didn't look, but something made her glance at the screen. The message was short. "Hope you enjoy your new life, Maya. Daniel is mine now. Elena." Maya read it 3 times before the words sank in. Elena hadn't even waited for Daniel to finish the conversation. She had been tracking it somehow, waiting for the exact moment to twist the knife. The phone slipped from Maya's fingers and clattered to the floor. And then the pain hit. Not emotional pain. She was already drowning in that. This was something different, something sharper, a tightening in her abdomen that stole her breath and sent her doubling over. No, not now. It was too early. She still had 2 months left. But her body didn't care about timelines. Another contraction ripped through her, and she felt a warm rush between her legs. Her water had broken. Maya looked around the empty apartment, her father's ghost still lingering in every corner, and realized she was completely alone. Her phone was on the floor somewhere, her husband was gone, her father was dead, and she was about to give birth in a cramped kitchen that smelled of aftershave and grief. If you're watching this right now and wondering what happens next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 2. Trust me, you're gonna want to see how Maya handles what comes next. Maya didn't know how she survived the next 6 hours. Pain blurred everything into fragments, crawling to the bathroom because she couldn't make it to the bedroom, gripping the edge of the tub until her knuckles went white, biting down on a towel to keep from screaming. She thought about calling 911, but the contractions came so fast that she couldn't focus long enough to find her phone. Her father's voice echoed through her mind, the last words he had spoken before he died. "Go to the bank, Mija. Box 714. Trust no one, especially not Daniel." At the time, she thought he was delirious from the morphine. Her father was a mailroom clerk. He'd worked in the same basement office for 30 years, sorting packages and delivering envelopes and making just enough money to keep the lights on. What could he possibly have in a safe deposit box? But now, alone and terrified and pushing a new life into the world, Maya held on to those words like a lifeline. Trust no one, especially not Daniel. Her daughter was born at 3:47 a.m., sliding into Maya's trembling hands with a cry that filled the tiny bathroom like a symphony. She was small but perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a tuft of dark hair that stuck up in every direction. Maya wrapped her in the cleanest towel she could find and held her against her chest, both of them crying in the darkness.
"It's okay," Maya whispered, her voice hoarse. "We're going to be okay. I promise." She didn't know if she was talking to her daughter or to herself. 3 days later, Maya stood outside First National Bank with her daughter strapped to her chest in a carrier she had found in her father's closet. Her body ached in ways she hadn't known were possible. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time since the birth, but her father's words kept echoing in her mind, pulling her forward like a rope she couldn't let go of. Box 714. The bank manager recognized her name immediately. "Miss Reyes," he said, his tone shifting from professional to almost reverent. "We've been expecting you. Please follow me." Expecting her? Maya followed him down a long corridor, past the regular safe deposit boxes, through a door marked private, and into a vault she hadn't known existed. The vault he led to wasn't a small metal drawer like she had imagined. It was a full safe, nearly as tall as she was, with a combination lock that required both a key and a thumbprint. "Your father set this up 30 years ago," the manager explained. "He came in every month to add to it, paid for 50 years of storage in advance." He handed her a key and stepped back. "Take all the time you need." When the vault door swung open, Maya's legs nearly gave out. Inside was a leather portfolio stuffed with documents, stock certificates, property deeds, bank statements with so many zeros that Maya had to count them twice, then 3 times, then stop counting altogether because the number didn't make sense. Her father, Mateo Reyes, the mailroom clerk who had worn the same 3 suits for her entire life, who had clipped coupons every Sunday, who had told her they couldn't afford dance lessons when she was 12, was worth billions. Not millions, billions. Maya sank to the floor of the vault, her daughter sleeping peacefully against her chest, and pulled out the letter with her father's handwriting on the envelope. "My dearest Maya," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. But I need you to understand why I lived the way I did, and why everything that's happening to you right now was not an accident." Maya read on, her hands shaking so badly that the paper rustled like leaves in a storm. Her father hadn't always been Mateo Reyes, the mailroom clerk. He had been Mateo Reyes III, heir to a real estate empire, brilliant investor, and, most importantly, the founder of a company called Omnicore Holdings. Omnicore was a shell corporation, invisible to the public, known only to the highest levels of the financial world. And Omnicore, Maya discovered as she flipped through the documents, owned 52% of Viridian Dynamics, Daniel's employer. Her father's letter continued, "I didn't walk away from money, mija. I built an empire from the shadows so you'd never be trapped by it. I wanted you to know what real love looked like, love that didn't depend on wealth or status or the things money could buy. I wanted you to marry someone who loved you for who you are." Maya thought of Daniel, of his coldness at the funeral, of the divorce papers on the kitchen table, of Elena's smug text message. "But Daniel," her father wrote, "was never that person. I knew it the moment I met him. I saw the way he looked at our apartment with disgust. I saw the way he calculated your worth based on what you could give him. And I let it happen, Maya, because I needed to know how deep his rot went." The next paragraph made Maya's blood run cold. "Daniel has been selling company secrets to Omnicore's rivals for the past 18 months. He thinks he's been dealing with anonymous foreign investors, but he's been dealing with my people. Every email, every transaction, every act of betrayal, I have documented it all. I let him hang himself with his own rope, because when the time comes, Omnicore will destroy him, and you, my daughter, will watch from the throne he never knew existed." Maya looked down at her sleeping daughter, at the peaceful face that looked so much like her own. Her father hadn't just left her money, he had left her power, and he had engineered her husband's downfall before Daniel even knew there was a game being played. At the bottom of the portfolio was a business card with a single name, Lucien Reyes, COO, Omnicore Holdings. Maya called the number. The voice that answered was smooth as ice and as cold. "Miss Reyes, we've been waiting for you." "Who are you?" "Your cousin, technically, but more importantly, I'm the man who has been running your father's empire for the past decade. He trusted me with everything except the final piece, you." "I don't understand any of this," Maya admitted. "I just found out my father was a billionaire. I don't know anything about business or corporations or—" "You don't need to," Lucien interrupted. "Not yet. All you need to know right now is that your first board meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Oh, and don't tell Daniel any of this. He still thinks Omnicore is just a mysterious investor. He has no idea that the company he's been betraying is owned by his wife." "He's not my husband anymore." "He's not anything anymore," Lucien said, and Maya could hear the smile in his voice. "He just got promoted. Head of Strategic Partnerships at Viridian Dynamics. Quite the surprise, given his years of underperformance." Maya frowned. "Why would they promote him?" "Because we told them to. It's a role we designed specifically for him, Miss Reyes, a role that will bury him." That night, Maya watched the news from her father's apartment, her daughter nursing quietly in her arms. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. "Viridian Dynamics announces surprise promotion. Daniel Reyes named head of strategic partnerships." Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucien. "He just signed his own execution order. Welcome to the family." Now, before I continue, I want to ask you something. If you were in Maya's position, would you warn Daniel? Would you save the man who abandoned you at your father's funeral, who served you divorce papers while you were still in mourning, who left you to give birth alone? Drop your answer in the comments below. I genuinely want to know what you would do. The Omnicore boardroom was nothing like Maya had imagined. There was no long table with leather chairs, no wall of windows overlooking the city. Instead, she was led to a small, soundproofed room with a single chair facing a one-way mirror. On the other side of the glass, a dozen executives in expensive suits discussed the future of Viridian Dynamics as casually as if they were ordering lunch. "You'll observe for now," Lucien explained, standing beside her. "Learn how we operate. Your father spent 30 years building this. You're not going to master it in a day." "What exactly are you planning to do to Daniel?" Lucien smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "His new position puts him in charge of Viridian's AI development project, a $200 million initiative that's been secretly funded by Omnicore from the beginning. The project is designed to fail, built on faulty technology, impossible timelines, and contracts that make Daniel personally liable for any losses. You're framing him for fraud. We're letting him frame himself. Every decision he makes, every document he signs, every corner he cuts to meet the deadlines we've set, it's all his own doing. We're just giving him the rope." Maya watched through the glass as a man she didn't recognize outlined the next phase of the operation. Daniel would be encouraged to forge partnerships with shell companies. He would be praised for cutting costs in ways that violated federal regulations. He would be celebrated for his innovation right up until the moment everything collapsed, and when it did, he would go to prison for a very long time. "What about Elena?" Maya asked. "Ah, the ambitious assistant." Lucien pulled up a file on his tablet and handed it to Maya. "Elena Torres, 32, MBA from Stanford, climbed her way from receptionist to executive assistant in 3 years by sleeping with every manager who could advance her career. Currently living in Daniel's apartment, the one he bought with money he embezzled from Viridian's travel budget." "He bought that apartment?" Lucien shook his head. "Daniel has been stealing from Viridian since before he married you. Small amounts at first, inflated expense reports, phantom consulting fees, but it's added up to nearly $800,000 over the years." Maya stared at the file, at the detailed records of every lie her husband had told, and felt something shift inside her. The grief was still there,
The betrayal still burned, but underneath it all, a new emotion was taking root. Rage. Not the hot, explosive kind, something colder, quieter, more patient. Her father's words echoed in her mind. True power doesn't announce itself, it waits. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya learned to wait. She attended board meetings in secret, watching through the one-way mirror as Omnicore systematically tightened the noose around Daniel's neck. She studied financial reports until her eyes ached. She memorized the names and faces of every executive who had a hand in the operation. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand the empire her father had built.
But she also struggled. At night, alone in her father's apartment with her daughter crying in the next room, Maya questioned everything. Daniel was a monster. She knew that now. But he was also her daughter's father. Did her baby deserve to grow up knowing her father was in prison because her mother had helped put him there? Did Maya have the right to destroy someone so completely, even someone who had destroyed her? "You're having doubts," Lucian said during one of their meetings. "I can see it in your eyes." "He's my daughter's father." "He abandoned his daughter before she was even born. He left you to give birth alone in a bathroom. He's currently planning to sign away any parental rights in exchange for Elena not being implicated in his crimes." Lucian leaned forward. "Mercy is weakness, Maya. Your father knew that." "My father also spent 30 years pretending to be poor so I would learn the value of real love. Maybe mercy was part of that lesson too." Lucian studied her for a long moment. "There's someone you should meet." The man Lucian introduced her to was Dr. Eris Thorne, Omnicore's head of corporate ethics. He was tall and gentle-faced, with the kind of soft voice that made you want to trust him immediately. "I admired your father," Eris said, shaking Maya's hand. "He was one of the few people in this world who understood that power comes with responsibility. I'm worried that Lucian has forgotten that lesson." "What do you mean?" Eris glanced around, then lowered his voice. "The plan to destroy Daniel, it's gone too far. Lucian isn't just trying to expose his crimes. He's actively planting evidence, manufacturing fraud that Daniel didn't actually commit. Your husband is guilty of many things, Maya, but he's not guilty of everything Lucian wants to charge him with." Maya felt the floor shift beneath her feet. "How do you know this?" "Because I have the files." Eris pressed a USB drive into her hand. "Everything is on here. Proof that Lucian has been fabricating evidence for months. I'm giving this to you because I believe you're different from him. I believe you can find a way to get justice without becoming the villain." That night, Maya plugged the USB drive into her laptop and spent hours reviewing the files. Eris was right. Lucian had been fabricating evidence. Emails Daniel never sent, contracts he never signed, an entire paper trail designed to send Daniel to prison for crimes he didn't commit. Maya thought about her father, about his letter, about the empire he had built from nothing. He had wanted her to be strong. He had wanted her to be powerful. But had he wanted her to become this? She made a decision. 3 days later, at a gala celebrating Viridian's new AI initiative, Maya confronted Lucian with the evidence. "Where did you get these?" His face went pale. "It doesn't matter where I got them. What matters is that I'm not going to let you frame an innocent man." "Daniel isn't innocent." "He's innocent of what you're planning to charge him with, and I'm not part of it." Lucian stared at her for a long moment, and then he smiled. It was the coldest smile Maya had ever seen. "You're right, those files are real, but you missed something important." He pulled out his phone and showed her a screen full of metadata. "Check the source." Maya looked. The files had been encrypted, routed through multiple servers, disguised to look like they came from Omnicore's internal systems. But when she traced them back to their origin point, she found a name she recognized: Eris Thorne.
Dr. Thorne is Elena's brother, Lucian explained, watching Maya's face crumble. He was planted in Omnicore 6 months ago, specifically to get close to you. Everything he told you was a lie, designed to make you leak these files to the authorities so that you could be charged with corporate espionage. No, Maya shook her head. He was trying to help me. He was trying to destroy you, just like his sister destroyed your marriage. Lucian stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Your father warned you, Maya. Trust no one. You should have listened. Maya looked across the ballroom and saw Eris standing near the bar, watching her with an expression that had transformed from gentle concern to cold satisfaction. Beside him, Elena raised a champagne glass in a mocking toast. They had been working together the entire time. The siblings had orchestrated everything. Elena seducing Daniel, Eris befriending Maya, all as part of some elaborate scheme to take down Omnicore from the inside. And Maya had walked right into their trap. Security guards materialized on either side of her. Lucian's voice was ice. I'm sorry, but you've left me no choice. Sign a confession admitting to corporate espionage, or your daughter goes into foster care. You can't do that. I can do anything. I've been running this empire for 10 years. Your father is dead, and you're nobody. Across the ballroom, Maya saw Daniel being led away in handcuffs, his face streaked with tears. He looked like a man who had aged 20 years in 30 days. Guards were shouting about fraud charges and embezzlement and federal investigations. On the balcony above, Elena watched it all unfold with a champagne glass in one hand and her phone in the other, recording every moment. Maya closed her eyes. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. True power doesn't announce itself. It waits. She had been focused on whether or not to show mercy to Daniel, that she had forgotten the most important lesson her father had ever taught her. Power wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about mercy. It was about being prepared. And Maya's father had always been prepared. Before I sign anything, she said, I want to make a phone call. Lucian laughed. To who? You have no one. I'm calling Protocol Hartwell. The words hit Lucian like a physical blow. His face grayed. How do you know about that? My father told me, in a letter I haven't shown anyone, a letter with instructions for exactly this situation. Maya held up her phone. Protocol Hartwell is a failsafe built into Omnicore's blockchain. If I'm ever threatened, if anyone tries to take my daughter or force me to sign anything under duress, I speak a single code word, and every asset in Omnicore transfers automatically to a blind trust for single mothers. You lose everything, Lucian. Every dollar, every property, every share of stock gone in 60 seconds. You're bluffing. Are I? Maya looked at her phone. The code word is my daughter's name, the one I picked while I was giving birth alone on my father's bathroom floor, the one I never told anyone because I wanted it to be ours, just me and her and my father's memory. She met Lucian's eyes. Do you really want to find out if I'm bluffing? The silence stretched for an eternity. Then Lucian laughed, but it was a different laugh this time, not cruel, almost admiring. Your father really did think of everything, didn't he? He thought about me. That was enough. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling. With Protocol Hartwell activated as a warning shot, Omnicore's board turned on Lucian immediately. An internal investigation revealed that the fraud everyone had been planning to blame on Daniel was actually Lucian's doing. Years of embezzlement, manipulation, and abuse of power that he had hidden behind Maya's father's trust. Lucian was arrested 3 days later. The charges would keep him in prison for decades. Eris Thorne tried to flee the country but was stopped at the airport. His role in the conspiracy, along with Elena's, was exposed in excruciating detail. Both siblings faced charges for corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. Elena's smug smile disappeared forever the moment she realized that her recording of the gala had captured her own incriminating statements. Daniel was cleared of the manufactured charges, though he still faced consequences for his real crimes, the embezzlement, the lies, the years of betrayal. He came to Maya's apartment 1 month after the gala, looking like a man who had aged 20 years in 30 days. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry." Maya stood in the doorway, her daughter in her arms. She looked at the man she had married, the man she had loved, the man who had left her to give birth alone while he celebrated with his mistress, and she felt nothing.
"You thought I was nothing," she said quietly, "so I let you believe it. But my father taught me something you'll never understand." "What's that?" "The best revenge is living so well that your enemies choke on the dust you leave behind." She closed the door in his face. 1 year later, Maya stood at her father's grave with her daughter, Lucia, named for the light her father had always seen in Maya, even when she couldn't see it in herself. The headstone was simple, just the way he would have wanted it. Mateo Reyes, it read, "Beloved Father." Not billionaire, not founder, not empire builder, just father. Maya placed a white lily on the grave, the same flower she had dropped into the mud on that rainy day a lifetime ago. "I miss you, Poppy," she whispered, "every day. But I understand now. I understand why you lived the way you did, why you wanted me to know what real love looked like before I knew what money could buy." Lucia gurgled in her arms, reaching toward the headstone with tiny fingers. "She has your eyes," Maya said, "and your stubbornness. She's going to be trouble, I can already tell." A breeze rustled through the cemetery, carrying the scent of lilies and fresh-cut grass. In the distance, a bird sang. Maya's phone buzzed. An Omnicore's board. "Unanimous vote complete. You are officially CEO. Congratulations, Miss Reyes." She didn't open it. Instead, she pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, a voicemail transcription that had arrived 3 days after her father's death, somehow lost in the chaos of those first terrible days. She had only found it last week, buried in a stack of unopened mail. Her father's voice, weak but clear. "If you're hearing this, mija, it means you won. You survived everything they threw at you. You found the strength I always knew you had. I'm so proud of you, prouder than you'll ever know. Now put down the phone, kiss that beautiful granddaughter of mine, and go live. Live the life you deserve. That's the only revenge that matters." Maya pressed the paper to her heart and looked up at the sky. "Rest easy, Poppy," she whispered. "I'm never powerless again." And somewhere, in the silence between heartbeats, she could have sworn he heard him say, "I know, mija. I always knew." If this story moved you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that stories like this deserve to be seen. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I have so many more stories like this one waiting for you. And drop a comment telling me, what would you have done in Maya's position? Would you have shown mercy? Would you have let Daniel burn? I read every single comment, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember, true power doesn't announce itself. It waits.